Welcome everybody to the Flag Day edition of CCRG. We have a really great presentation for you guys today, and I see a lot of folks in the room who know a lot about homelessness and research and education. So I also am excited for the discussion that is sure to follow the presentation that we're going to have. So today we're going to be talking about the rental assistance pilot for families in housing crisis and the evaluation of the project's success and what further efforts the pilot has spurred. Before I dig in on the bios of the presenters that we'll have today, I just want to do some housekeeping stuff. As folks who have been to CCRG before know, there's a bathroom just right out here. If that one's occupied, you can also kind of cut through the clinic, go straight to the right, and there's another set of bank of bathrooms there. We are recording the presentation, so if you want to listen to it again, if you want to share it with other people, keep an eye out on that CCRG Yahoo group, and you'll see the presentation. That also means that it's really helpful when you speak up and allocate well and not swear. We don't have any swear words in the presentation. Don't bleep it out. So if something really roused you, take a breath and filter those. Researchers, we're a crazy bunch. Anything else? Doug, you're more the expert as the housekeeping. What else? No. Okay.
Next month we'll
talk about next week. Great. So today we have Kirby Pittman. Wave, Kirby. Kirby is a researcher with Minnesota's Housing Planning Research and Evaluation Division. She has over 15 years of experience in policy research and program evaluation with various levels of government, mainly focusing on issues of housing and education, which is right up her alley. Kirby holds a master's degree in public policy from the University of Minnesota Humphrey School of Public Affairs and a bachelor's degree of fine arts from Vanderbilt. Very nice.
Art history.
Nice.
Yeah, very useful.
It's the Humphrey. Yeah. Joe Curiel. Joe is the results measurement specialist with Minnesota Department of Education. He's been working in education research and evaluation for the past 10+ years. And part of his work with MDE is specific to research and evaluation and data analysis surrounding homeless students in Minnesota and associated outcomes. Joe received his MA in sociology from the University of Houston. Take it away, guys.
Hey, I'm just, thank you. It's great to see everybody here today. And yeah, this is right up my alley. I was so excited when I started at Housing last time. I know it's the first time. So we're just gonna, Joe's gonna talk a little bit about homelessness and students in Minnesota, and then I'll give a brief overview of the rental assistance pilot program. Then we'll get into the evaluation methodology and the results, and then talk about what some efforts that have come out of this. So, Joe, you are.
It's not a heat map, it's just a point map of homeless students across the state. So they're represented in 1,241 schools, 300 different school districts, 77 counties. You'll notice there is concentration here, obviously in the metro right here, but I think an important takeaway is that it shows up in lots of places. So we're not just talking about, we're talking about a metro concentration, but it's an issue that spans statewide. I hope everyone can see that. I'll highlight some of the numbers if not. So we're looking at statewide homelessness counts over time. I should do a little bit of background on how we do that at MDE. So a student gets a homeless flag once they're identified as in one of the right homeless situations in a shelter, hotels, motels, double up, that sort of thing. You get a flag in what's called a MARS database, and once you get that flag, regardless of your housing situation throughout the rest of the year, that flag remains. Bringing in anything to fall off of it. So what we're looking at here is statewide homelessness, caseload population over time. You'll notice a general upward trend in the percentage of students that are identified as homeless, starting in 2015 going to 2016, which is when the end of the pilot is what we stopped there. And then counts represented below the same trend as well. Things you might want to notice here is there was a downward trend in conversations with people, housing in other areas. Probably likely due to our efforts to minimize the impact of homelessness and to reduce homelessness. So this correlates well with some things that are happening at the state. We'll get into that a bit later. Another thing to point out from this data is that even though we're only talking about 1.1% of the entire state population, that's still 8,600 students. And this number here is pulled from October 1 count. That we use the federal accountability. All your enrollment records come from October 1. It's going to bump up by a good 1,500, 2,000 students. So not everybody gets, schools aren't necessarily aware of the homeless situation, but actually make them up under the conversation. How the situation may change. This is going to bump over time. So the way to interpret this, what I laid out is student homelessness within our different ethnic categories. This is back where we were using 5, now we're using 7 federal categories. So the way I laid it out here is, let's look at, we'll start with the American Indian family. So of students that are not homeless, 2.3% of them are American Indian. Of students that are homeless, 10.4% of them are American Indian. Now, a completely equitable, strange word to use there, but I think it was, a completely equitable distribution of homelessness by ethnicity, by race ethnicity, would be equal percentages here. So 2.3% of the not homeless students were American Indians at 1.5 to the west. Then we would also see 2.3% of homeless students being American Indians. We can say there's disproportionality, inequity in terms of the way homelessness is distributed. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So give me a second. Hanging it down a little better. Just help me process this too. It's startling here for American Indian students, I think. It's a 5-fold increase there. It's most startling, and so obviously everyone already within our black student budget. So let me just talk through the interpretation again, because I think it makes it a little bit more profound. Of students that are not homeless, 11.5% of them are black students. Of students that are homeless, they make up almost half of the entire homeless student population. So disproportionate here, really disproportionate here. And the proportionality has to do with the inverse in another situation. And we see it here with the white student population. Of students that are homeless, 25.6% of them are white. Of students that are not homeless, it's about 70% of the population. We're just setting up where we're going with the pilot. Want to make a comment about that or a question? I find that really interesting. Yeah.
I would just, it looks like the last 2 bars still covering that.
Oh, probably. Yeah, thank you. I was pointing out before, and I just haven't fixed it. This is when I was experimenting with Tableau. So. You'll get to see this various flavor of some of Kirby's work and all this. You can do the same thing with our special population. Interpretation is the same here. So we're looking at within special education, within our period response population, within LEC. This isn't too startling. I mean, I expect if you're black, it's almost also going to qualify as period response. This doesn't shock me either, but I think it's interesting to point out that if you're homeless, another way to interpret this is to say, if you're black and homeless, you're more likely to be in special education, you're more likely to be in LEC, and you're very likely to call that period response. So another question we can ask, we see disproportionality represented as ethnicities and special population. Well, we can ask a question like, does it matter in terms of outcome? If you have the homeless flag, like, doesn't correlate with your achievement. So the way we do it in the state is we break out, in the state test, you get put into one of 4 categories based on how well you do. Exceed is the best you can do. Meet is the next best you can do. You're meeting standards, you're exceeding standards. You're partially meeting standards, means you're not proficient, but it's not as bad as does not meet standards. That's the bottom category. The way I've got laid out here is starting with the exceed to the meet. We can think about those 2 chunks as our proficiency measure. So anybody in this realm is going to be considered proficient on the test. anybody in the above realm is not sufficient. So I laid it out here, homeless students on one side, not homeless students on the other. You know, I think we'd expect to see a disparity here, but it's striking to me how much of a disparity that we have. So let's say I'm adding up my new mixed use category for the homeless students. I don't even reach the same level as the not homeless students being in the mixed use category. So homelessness may be just, the homeless flag may be just a proxy for a whole bunch of other things, but this is telling me that it's saying something meaningful about the street. It matters if you have that flag. A lot of other things might matter as well, this is importantly, but it's correlating well with our outcome. Yeah. That was math achievement, reading achievement levels. Disparity is not as bad, but it's still pretty close. Here's our unique categories here, adding up to about 25%, compared to students who don't have the homeless flag at all. It's above this category here, but it's still a long way to go until we reach the class. I don't like the way Tableau does this graph, so eventually I'll redo this one as well. But I just, yeah, it would be better. Anyway, compared to students who are flag is homeless and not homeless, we do see the disparity in attendance. 90% is our somewhat arbitrary, but it's the threshold for being chronically absent, which is a new measure that we're having under the every feedback. So one point to make here is that student flag is homeless on average, averaging in chronically absent. That's 90% threshold. 96 for students who are not homeless. Is wide, 95 something to put them all together. There's definite disparity in attendance as well.
So that the 90% of homeless students are not chronically absent?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And 96% of students who are not homeless are not chronically
No, we should have clarified that right off the bat. This is the percent of attendance, kind of the school year which you attend it. So
Based on instructional days?
based on enrollment days and attendance days, we have two different variables for that. The number of days we were enrolled in the school district and then the number of days actually attended. So on average, they were attending 90% of the school year. I think chronically absent for that. Well, nope, okay. On average, they were averaging about 90% of the school year, which is on average being chronically absent. I forget what the proportion is. I think we have it.
Yeah, I think it's
But just trying to point out the disparity here, you're seeing a pattern in how people go. We don't have a good measure of mobility at the state. We don't track it directly. Families bounces around from household to household. What we do know is the number of schools that a student might attend in the school year, number of districts, number of schools. District is harder to get outside of your district bounds, but a little more easier to move around, so we see easier results there. So once again, comparing homeless students, not homeless students, but homeless students, you were not flagged as homeless at all. You very likely only attended one school throughout the school year, almost 37% there. If you were homeless, a little more than half of you attended only one school that school year.
Is reflecting on the prior year, the 12 months prior to October?
Within a single school year. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, is this measure taken in October?
No. So what I'm looking at here is within a single school year, like a 16, 17 school year, whatever, the month time frame, how many different school codes do you have? How many school codes should I expect? Does that clarify that? Yeah. Okay. And there's a lot of weeds there. So you can go to an ALC. It could be another school, but it could be like in the same building for that matter. So there's a lot of little nuances we had to dig through here. We eliminated certain cases as well, just based on nuance, but no, we tried to refine it so that it would be, you have to go to a different school at a different location, not one of its ALC affiliates or something like that. So there's a lot of nuance we put into this. Other questions there?
Or is it now moving students that have 5 years throughout the school year?
No, so everything I'm laying out here is that public first. That's the way we reported federally to set for this. I am doing some work surrounding. So now we have another nuance to our database. Now we're actually going to get a student's going to get a new record when they get the homeless flag. Previously, they might not have got a new record, so we wouldn't know the actual date that it happened. But now they're getting a new record. So they can do things like other fluctuations month to month on the number of homeless flags that are showing up. A variety of time-sensitive things like that. Every student who sees that essentially is moving us in the direction of paying more attention to this situation. One of the things that commonly comes up, and I'm sure people in the room have heard this before, is just poverty. Poverty is the big indicator. That's one we should worry about. Living situations not as big a deal as people with poverty, but so we can ask a question like that to the data that we collected for state. We can say, okay, so we have students that qualify for Reach Lunch. We don't have the homeless flag. And we have students that qualify for Reach Lunch and have the homeless flag. Is there a difference in outcomes between those two groups? It's a crude measure, it's a rough measure. You could spend the rest of the time thinking about it, but I just want to make a larger point that we're seeing a disparity here too. So both of these students are perhaps not in the exact same economic situation, but they're in that bottom, below that cutoff line, qualifying for this month. And we see a disparity in attendance again, 90.1 compared to 97.5. Here's the chronically absent percentage here. Students that were not homeless, 97% of who were not chronically absent. If you were homeless, you ended up in 71%. 71.6. Another slide on that. Achievement levels, we saw comparing homeless to not homeless, not worrying about poverty or free lunch status. We saw almost the same type of disparity here, nearly half as much in position on the statewide that homeless compared to not. We're not, I don't say controlling for poverty, but we're using a very crude measure to get an idea of whether the homeless flag still has an impact. I don't think anyone wants to comment about that. I find that interesting, and I wish we could go deeper with that. Some measure of income, employment, we can do a little bit later. Briefly and roughly, I think, it's actually a project that I'm kind of working on the side to find that intersectionality. So we know Black students make a homeless half ball and homeless students. What else intersects with that? And what differentiation do we see on outcomes based on the intersection of race and LDC and everything else that's left in the state? So, kind of. And we're working on it.
I don't know, but what is the ratio of poverty that you have to be to get?
Oh, I wish I knew that off the top of my head. Of the federal poverty level. Yeah.
So, I'm assuming also know it wasn't good clear on the other slide that everybody that gets raised as homeless in the school automatically qualifies for the
Yeah.
Like, there's like a disparity of like, what was that, was they typically qualify for everyone?
They should. Mars is not always perfect in that respect.
There's also qualifies for seniors for employment versus actually live.
Right.
Right, and the FRP stuff that MCC has is actually in rather than policy. So, it's actually a narrow category, a more narrow category, and especially in high school. You may have a family income that fits in that bracket, but you're not enrolled, and you don't get reflected.
We have it at state. 30 something. I could figure it out. I get on the Wi-Fi. I'll get back to you with a good number on that. almost 35. McKinney-Vento has a provision in there that, so if a student is flagged as homeless, they have to move somewhere else for whatever reason, if they move away from their school of origin, they can request to be transported back to their school of origin, not change schools within the middle of the school year. We'll just get some idea of the impact, fiscal impact of having homeless students throughout the state with this provision. So just looking at Minneapolis and St. Paul, I think is the two most prevalent examples of transportation costs per student per year of homeless students compared to housing students. So not dealing with the homeless situation, not creating housing stability with having a significant cost for our district, having a transport system. Yeah. I was curious about that. This isn't my slide. This is someone else's, and we haven't had a chance to connect and discuss that at all. Yeah.
Can I ask a question that jumps way ahead?
Okay.
We're just about to.
Yeah, we're almost there. Okay.
Okay, so good planning to talk about something.
Good segue.
Yes.
I don't want to.
So there's a large body of research that links homelessness or housing instability to a negative impact on a child's academic achievement. And so kind of give you a quick smattering of research that we looked at. It kind of underscores a lot of what Joe just talked about, further evidence of this pattern. And then I'm going to move into the mental system pilot. The pilot was established in 2013. The legislature passed a law appropriating $2 million for the pilot. The pilot is for families with school-age children who had changed schools or housing in the past school year. And it provided up to 2 years of rental assistance for these families, limiting their expenditures on housing to 30% of their income. So the goal was to improve improve school attendance by stabilizing housing. And so the other thing I want to say about this is it was administered through 3 different administrators, and they really targeted families who had more than that threshold of moving once, moving schools or housing once. So it went deeper than that. And the evaluation assessed, we looked at housing stability and we looked at housing attendance, but not achievement. And Joe touched on that a little bit later. And so just to quickly, for context, these 3 administrators were the Northside Achievement Zone, NAZ, St. Paul Commons Neighborhood, and Clay County Housing Redevelopment Authority. And I know a lot of you probably know tons about NAZ and St. Paul Commons Neighborhood. In a nutshell, they are based, they're geographically based. NAZ is in northeast Minneapolis. St. Paul Commons Neighborhood is Frogtown and Summit University neighborhoods. They're high poverty, high unemployment areas. Both of these areas have higher than the citywide homelessness student rate. And another key thing to know about these organizations is they provide wraparound services to the families that they serve. So when families come in, they get they're called achievement coaches and navigators. They get a point person to help identify the needs of families and then fill in the gaps. It might be employment, help find employment, training, help find housing, early learning scholarships for their children. It's a very much of a wraparound wraparound organization. And Clay County HRA partnered with the Moorhead School District to administer the program. They also partnered with community organizations and social services to also provide that wraparound experience for people receiving the benefits.
to take credit for this.
Yes, you do.
Go back one. So we had, for the sake of time, I'll spend a lot of time on this, but I anticipate discussion at the end. We had a lot of different things happening in three different regions. Different things happening here, here, and here. The idea going in, we had grand ideas of doing a nice match comparison group between other students in the same neighborhoods, maybe in the same schools that had the homeless flag, but weren't participating in our particular housing pilot, weren't getting the rental subsidy. But when you're doing a comparison group like that, everyone knows what you want is, for an ideal match, you want the only difference between your two groups to be intervention. So everybody looks the same except somebody's getting a special intervention. You have a stormtrooper helmet. And then you can compare, okay, what was the intervention effect? Everybody else is getting exactly the same. So we had lots of different things going on here. And we're talking about at a variety of levels too. At the school level, different things are happening. Programmatic levels, so at the neighborhood, different things are happening. If you're in the pilot, you may be getting extra service too. And those services sometimes extend, those programs extended to the neighborhood and schools. Lots of complications in there. That makes it really hard to control for and have the only difference be the intervention. So we had to, and I know we could probably spend an hour going through, did you try and what if, I'd rather not do that with this conversation, just move to some of the complications we ran, see what we did, and then the outcomes associated with it. So we had a variety of things to work with. We had attendance, we had ethnicity, we had our special populations, our homeless status, a variety of things. And everybody, people tend to think that because we collect so much data as a department that we can do a lot of these researchy things. But we collect data for two purposes. One, for funding, if we have to, and that's how we fund schools. And secondly, is for mandated federal and state reporting. We don't collect data because we think it will be good for doing this type of research. So we don't have anything about the quality of instruction through 30 students. Very important to their outcome. We don't have anything about their home life or their pregnant, born stuff, really good funding. And we don't have, and I hope just to make the point, everything else that might influence them. It's what you really want to do, really good, strong comparison. So our dreams of doing these sort of things are met with reality, and we have to think of a new methodology. What are we going to do with what we have? Do we want to say something about it? Just to highlight, we need to control for a whole bunch of things. And we can make this list really long for one thing, but essentially everything that would go into whether or not a student becomes a student. We don't have to make a good comparison here. So what we ended up doing was using our natural comparison here. So we had students that entered the pilot, the families that entered the pilot, I should say, were getting the rental subsidy and ended up getting stable housing. So stabilizing that part of their life, taking advantage of wraparound services. And then we had people that sort of naturally fell out of the pilot, ended up not being stably housed, not taking full advantage of the services. We think there's a level of engagement or investment. We had people that were really invested in engaged and took full advantage of the program that they had, and those that ended up not taking full advantage and not stabilizing that part of their life. It's sort of natural within group comparison. We also have statewide homeless students we could look at. There's lots of caveats to looking at that there, but we have that as a possibility. And then we have our previous ones to compare the schools and the situation of poverty compared to how our students do.
So I feel like I had the easy part because the housing, determining what the impact was on someone's housing was much more clear-cut than what Joe was looking at. So I'm going to just talk about those results for a couple slides here. So the housing situation prior to entering the program looked like this. All the students were not stably housed. So even those here that were housed were paying more than 30% of their income in rent. There were, so 2/3 were either homeless or doubled up. And the doubled up, a lot of the doubled up families would probably be the definition as well. Those who were housed either lived in rental housing without a subsidy or were in foster care. Those who were doubled up or staying with a family or friends. And then the homeless, those who were homeless were either in an emergency shelter, in a hotel or a motel paid for with emergency shelter voucher, or living in a place not meant for homeless. And so the housing situation at program exit was, with this chart here, 90% of those who we knew what their housing status was had achieved stable housing. So this was a really significant finding for the study. It's achieving that goal of stabilizing housing. So students who left the program with a positive exit and those who remained in their housing with rental assistance by the end of the program were considered stably housed. Those who were not stably housed had a negative exit to the program, meaning they were legally evicted or receiving a notice to vacate for criminal or drug activity or other lease violations, including not paying rent. The unknown, there was a significant chunk of unknowns, so digging into those, a lot of those families either left the program, left the area, and or never had an exit interview with their administrators, so they didn't know, the administrators didn't know. Or they did achieve housing, but they were not, the administrators were not clear at how stable housing was. And so they were kind of
Can you talk about what you mean by the program ended? Is that the pilot ended, or?
well, either it's the pilot ended or they achieved some of these, positive exit scenarios were transitioning to unsubsidized housing, or their income exceeded what was allowed for the pilot, or they purchased a home, or they changed to some other type of housing subsidy that wasn't the pilot. So, so that, and like I said, the administrators had exit interviews with as many families as they could to get that information.
The unsubsidized housing, where they were paying more than subsidy coming in.
They weren't. They would have been not stably housed.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah. They would have been not.
That's a very leading question. But I might know the answer to. Did achieving housing stability correlate with any of the other measures that people like this?
Yeah.
Maybe?
So we had, there's a matrix that the administrators use that had like 11 different indicators. The homeless shelters use it throughout, I don't know, I guess it is throughout the state. Anyway, we probably have some of the indicators on that matrix. The data's not great. We don't use it consistently, so I actually don't have a slide and kind of downplay it. But we did see two significant findings. One was income, that the income of the stable housed population was significantly higher than the not stable housed.
Mental health, right?
No. The income was really the most. Oh, it was disability, and I'm not going to go there because the numbers were really. We saw that there was some difference in those who had a disability was more significant than the hospital homes, but it was very small. In the studies, it did, but again, the numbers were really, the ends were really small, so.
I think the point I wanted to make there was just that there might be ways we want to think about differentiating service in the future based on some of these
Yeah,
small
Yeah.
indicators that we have.
yeah, and we can talk more about
Yep.
that.
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Income information. Where did you obtain the
You know, it was the administrators collected that information on the matrix, and again, the data is like not that great. I don't know. I think it was self-reported. And then they had to take down the information, and they had to get the information from the other system. So it's very, it's not easy to find. So thanks, Joe. Yes.
About the two sites where the pilot happening. What's kind of the breakdown of this and after the two sites? Is it
There wasn't much, I don't think there was variation. I don't remember what the breakdown was. Do you?
No, I think it was the most and most out of Riverside, and that's Dogtown, and then Moorhead.
There definitely, yeah, I don't remember if, I don't remember exactly, but there wasn't much variation.
I know in what I ran, you ran this, so the stuff that I ran, there wasn't hardly any variation between the two years.
This is, yes, number 6. So there could be families. There would be, yeah, yeah. There would be, a lot of these kids have children. And
Is that a motion here to find out what more kids, would I be more likely to
No.
hear about?
no, you just had to have a full-age child.
I would say there's probably some self-selection that was happening there. A lot of the kids that we ended up with were really young, really great. So we're talking, pre-K to 3 were most of our participants. Yeah.
All right.
You remember we had a variety of natural comparisons here. What's represented here, first of all, is the 13-14 school year, so we're going back before anybody got subsidy, all the way through 15-16, getting at least 1 year of rental assistance, some have more, at least 1 year of rental assistance. And we're looking for differences in percentage of attendance. So once again, the percent of the school year that you attended. You can roll 100 days, you can 92% of the school year. Trajectory here was most important because there's different groups that were interested in before the intervention, when the intervention happened, and at the end of the year. Starting with students, so this is our research of students in poverty. You see a slight change in attendance, but kind of significant because it's statewide, but I don't think it's the best comparison group that we have, other one group we have. We have statewide homelessness with law in terms of percent of school year attended by maybe 2.5%. So we had less homeless students overall in the state, but they were attending less schools. I think our strongest group is students here. So we have students that were in the pilot and ended up being stably housed, fully invested. And then we have these students that the families dropped out of the pilot and for whatever reason didn't invest in the so you see a bit of stability here. You can see the house is down a little bit, negative 0.7, I don't know if you have to make it that. But compared to those who didn't achieve housing stability, they lost 3%. And that's
How many states have you said has been the gentleman who was not, in the pilot, who was not achieved stable housing? It was because they didn't achieve stable housing.
No, well, we know that they did not have stable housing when the program ended, or they exited in a negative way. And so it could be that they were evicted from their housing, and so they weren't in stable housing, or the program well, actually that's not true. If they, yeah, it would have been if they lost their housing, or you're right, if they just dropped out. But I don't know that.
So
that,
What about the family who the program came to an end, the subsidy ended, they got an apartment, but now they don't have the subsidy to help them pay for it, and so they still don't have a higher quality job.
if they didn't,
End the program and they're not, they have to get the payment because they have the house.
then they would be in that not stably housed group. If they ended the program,
All the services
Yeah.
available, and just not to see your income.
yeah,
So I have a problem with the way you characterize that is not having to do with the services and not having to get a payoff.
yeah, no, that's a great clarification. So and that's a great way to say that. And it was, again, as you remember, not a large number as well. But it would have been that they didn't achieve the housing at the end. They didn't get another voucher. Their income didn't go up. All those positive exit things, they didn't achieve any of those. Or they were evicted.
You just stick the money on the slide, I think that'll be. Not stably housed, stably housed. Regardless of why.
But it goes back to that one slide that said stably housed, not stably housed, unknown. Those are the things.
And I think the point is that we do see negative today. I mean, maybe this is something meaningful, that they didn't engage, but they didn't achieve what we did.
I want to check my, you know, like the $2 million pilot, supposed to be successful. We're say the house or the small,
Essentially, yeah.
But it was a small period of time, and we had a lot of discussion around this
Yeah.
about, like needing more time. It's really, some of these kids who are in these categories, they didn't have the rental assistance for the full 2 years. They may have gotten in late, so there was some staggering, and so we really feel that we needed more time to see any real significant impact.
What I was going to add is that this is the reason we decided not to look at academic achievement. That's very hard to show an impact on, and it'll take a few years before you might get there. And I had hesitations about what attendance in the first place, and that you may not see it as the fact that you want to do it because it takes a lot of time. And then, as we mentioned before, there's so many things that go into attendance, not just housing stability, everything that gets. And that was exactly our most generous certificate. To say, cheap stability here. You know, things didn't drop as dramatically as this year, which is why I think it is enough to the field and to
the whole pilot, not diversity, would it look pretty much like this?
I don't remember. I know what you said. I don't remember.
But it was all, I mean, we did really struggle with sort of slicing and dicing it and how to really show what the impact was for these specific kids and whether it was, positive or not. And I mean, the exciting thing for us personally too is that there's now another program funded with another $2 million, which we'll talk about next, which will also there'll be a research component to that, and we will continue to evaluate that going forward. Yeah. I do want to just say, into it. This is another overlay of data that we look at in the report. And it's just a kind of a quick and dirty, but this is NDE data, and the whole pie chart is all the kids who had that homelessness flag in 2014, 2015. Over half of those kids resolved their homelessness, their families resolved their homelessness situation within the year. So 43% was still homeless in 2015, 16. Which really led us to have some conversations about what if we had more of a tiered approach to this funding? What if we had more assessing of people's situations and hearing the assistance that they get? Could we go deeper and have more of an impact and assist more families? So I just wanted to put that in there, because I think that was, in some ways, one of the findings from this evaluation. So the evaluation, we saw that it definitely helps families achieve stable housing. We are willing to say that it was an important factor in helping students stabilize their attendance after experiencing housing instability. Hopefully more to come on that when we get into the here. So what's happening now is that the legislature passed funding for us. It'll come to Minnesota Housing again for $2 million to do a program called Home Starts with Home. And so this will look at both short and long-term housing assistance to prevent family homelessness, stabilize highly mobile families, and house families experience home. This effort, this program really came out of an effort of the Interagency Council on Homelessness. It's made up of most of Governor Dayton's cabinet, 13 different commissioners of state agencies working together. Their guiding document is Heading Home, Minnesota's Plan to Prevent and End Homelessness. The Homework Starts with Home program is in this plan. It's like 125 different action items. They're all assigned to a specific agency with a timeline, with measures to success. And so this is the state's overarching effort to prevent and end homelessness.
Erica, sorry you couldn't be here because
Oh yeah,
his
Eric
baby.
Trumdahl is the thing, and he is the governor.
Yeah.
So he was planning to be with it. So also I want to say that this program, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet. We're still internally working that out. But it's going to use the results from the pilot evaluation. It's also going to probably go through probably at the Henson County Stable Families Initiative, which has been very successful. And then also the efforts around ending veteran homelessness, which Eric is as well. And the other thing is that there's a Funders Collaborative. So there are several philanthropic organizations that are partnering up to make this $2 million go much further. And so that's in the work as well. So we're very excited about that, and we were a little disappointed because it was in the governor's budget for $8 million. We got $2 million, but we got the $2 million. So, and there's going to be a research component to it. And that until this one is going on in a little bit. One, but there are lots of players in the room here. So related to this, there's a group of state agencies and lots of faculty from the U, and Maria Hanratty is one of the leaders of this, as well as Ann Marston. We are partnering to apply for Grand Challenges Research Initiative grant at the U around the theme of fostering just and equitable communities. And so correct me if I'm wrong, just a little, I can't find notes from the last phone call, but really it's to implement a formative longitudinal evaluation of the Homework Starts with Home program, but just bringing together this incredible interdisciplinary group of people. There's just to use the list of people that I know, groups I know that are involved. From the state, it's Minnesota Housing, Education, MMB, the Office of Higher Education, from the U, the Institute for child development, country school, Center for Applied Research and Educational Improvement, Center for Translational Research and Child and Children's Mental Health, the med school, the pediatrics department, organizational leadership, policy and development, educational equity research center, Center for Advanced Studies and Child Welfare, and it's growing. So we submitted a pre-proposal for this funding, and that was accepted. So now in the full application. And does anyone else want to talk a little bit about the research? Because it's really exciting. There's a lot of talk about all these different data systems out there and trying to get them to talk to each other and using an effort to do that and really have an impact going forward in how this data is collected and used. And really exciting. Maria?
Okay, so one of the key, again, South Africa right now. So it's a little hard to narrow it down. I mean, the goal would be to form collaborations between the university and then also with the state to address some of these cross-cutting issues. And then also, I think, expand the capacity. So I think like this policy initiative is really important, but it's also, it's kind of building momentum on that. So can we use it as a proof of concept, knowing that we can do this kind of research and
I'll also point out that as part of the grant development grant, I think all of us, when we look at the data that are available to MDT and through our various systems, we want more there. And I think Joe did a really good job of pointing out this is what we have in our systems right now. This is what we're trying to work with. Here are the caveats that we have to be aware of when we say, when we throw around the term highly mobile, whether or not that's really defined initiatives that are using it. One thing that we highlighted as an opportunity in Grand Challenge is that we can, and even actually I'll just say the question of academic growth. When we look at academic growth for the Department of Ed data, what we had access to was a point in time, just that single year, that test, that high-stakes test, that doesn't mean anything to the students necessarily, and some folks are using very little this year, and it's evaluated at the end of the year. We had that data point that we could look at that I think we much better than we look at students from most folks who look at that data. So I think one thing that we see an opportunity with the Grand Challenges grant is that we need to be able to align the sites that we have with those sites that have really districts, that have a more robust data system on the county level potentially, that maybe are willing to work with us to connect to the data sets. Let's try to do that. Requires privacy conversations and things that need to be signed by multiple owners and multiple different sides. So this is one of the things that with Grand Challenges, we're hoping that we can sort of continue to talk about the initiative itself and also the research side. As Kirby mentioned, a lot of these people and pieces. So in the next couple of months, that's really what we're going to be trying to do. And I want to be really mindful of time. So it's 1:30. And we haven't even gotten, I think we've sort of introduced Q&A throughout the conversation. But for folks who can stay, please do. For those who are not able to stay, don't feel shy about walking up and leaving. We all know we have places to go. We'll continue to record, so if you want to come back and find out what happened with the Q&A, please do. Otherwise, thank you very much, and we'll hope to see you guys next month. And I don't have that on hand, but it's on the Did you get your flash drive?
No.
Are you guys okay to stay a couple minutes?
I am. I think Joe.
I'm kind of not.
You have to.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know how much today there will be, but yeah. or even just chatting under the
Yeah.
All right, I grab that. Thanks for setting us up.
Bye, Joe.
I have my email through, I sent that last one.